Hi, it's Grandma Ray. I love children, I love books, and I especially love reading books to children. In this video, I am reading and recommending Jack and the Giant, a story full of beans. The words and the pictures are both by Jim Harris. Here we go. Once there was a young cowpoke named Jack who lived with his ma, Annie Okie Dokie, on a dusty little desert ranch. A no-good giant had stolen all the cattle off their ranch, the bar none. All they had left was an old milk cow named Fred. One night as they ate their supper, Annie said, "Jack, we're fresh out of food and money. You'll have to take Fred to town tomorrow and sell her." So there we go. Boy, that's sad. I'd hate to have to sell my cow. But you do need to eat. The next morning, Jack and Fred hit the trail just as the sun cleared Bad Luck Butte. Along the way, Jack met a peddler with a creaky old wagon. "Howdy, stranger," the peddler said. "That's some cow you've got there. Want to sell her?" "Sure," Jack answered. "I'm on my way to the market right now." "Why not sell her to me and save yourself a long trip into town?" the man asked. "I'll give you this bag of magic beans and a great tasting gum." "Is there any flavor left in it?" asked Jack. "You bet. I've only been chewing on it for 3 weeks." So the peddler headed off with Fred. Jack went home with a bag of beans, chewing his gum. Ew, I don't think I'd want to chew gum that somebody else had chewed. That doesn't sound very good. He's got the cats following him around too. The cat, not cats. When Jack showed the beans to his ma, she was furious. "Oh, Jack," she cried, "your first cattle drive and you lose the whole herd." She chucked the beans out the window. When Jack woke the next morning, a leaf the size of a hay wagon was poking through his window. A huge beanstalk had grown up right beside the house. Looky there. Goodness, that is a big beanstalk. Quick as a wink, Jack pulled on his boots and his Stetson hat and started climbing up the stalk. Jack climbed and climbed until he was eye to eye with elf owls and Harris hawks and even a desert thunderstorm. At last, he poked his head through a cloud. To his surprise, there in the clouds was a cow munching on grass. Off in the distance, Jack saw an adobe castle. By now, his stomach was growling like an old grizzly, so he headed straight for the castle, hoping for some real grub. Looky there. My goodness, right there in the clouds, a big castle and cows munching on grass. He walked up to the castle and knocked on the door. A cook as big as a windmill answered. "You look like you might be hungry," he said, friendly as could be. "Come on in and I'll fix you some lunch." "That would be nice if you think nobody would mind," Jack answered. "Oh no," laughed the cook. "The giant just loves to have people for lunch." Giant? Jack thought. But he was hungry enough to eat his boots, so he followed the cook inside. I'm not sure. When he says the giant likes to have people for lunch, does he mean that he likes to have them over for lunch? Or he likes to eat them for lunch? Just as Jack was fixing to take his first bite, the giant stomped in through the front door. Jack had seen the giant's face before on a wanted poster. He was Wild Bill Hiccup, the famous cattle rustler, and he was ugly enough to peel paint off a picket fence. If I can catch that yellow-bellied coyote, Jack thought, I'll get a lollapalooza of a reward. Suddenly, Wild Bill pinched his nose and roared, "Yippee-yi-yay, yippee-yi-you, I smell the boots of a buckaroo." Uh-oh, he thinks Jack smells bad. And he smells Jack. whispered the cook to Jack. "Hide, or he'll make a sandwich out of you." And so he dropped Jack into a jar of pickles. The giant looked everywhere for Jack. Finally, he gave up, sat down at the table, and started wolfing down his supper. While the giant was eating, the cook brought in an old raggedy trunk and set it on the table. The giant pulled out a lasso, a banjo, and a furry buffalo. Well, those are some weird things to have in a trunk. He took the lasso and looped it over some French fries. Pop, fizzle, bang! "I'll be hornswoggled," Jack gasped. The lasso had turned the fries into gold. The giant bellowed, "Buffalo, buffalo, lay some gold. Great big chunks that I can hold." Soon mounds of solid gold buffalo chips piled up on the table. Looky there. Wow! Wild Bill rubbed his eyes. "Banjo," he yawned, "all this money makes me tired. Sing me to sleep or else you're fired." Before long, the giant was snoring loud enough to give a rock a headache. Jack plucked up his courage and stepped out from behind a chocolate shake. "Reach for the sky, Hiccup!" he shouted. "I've got you surrounded." Well, Jack is being very brave, isn't he? I'm not sure it's smart, but he's being very brave. The giant's eyes popped open and he jerked his hands high in the air. But then he spied Jack and grinned. A greasy, growly grin that slithered into a sneer. Jack laughed nervously. "Well, good joke, huh, Mr. Hiccup? But I think I hear my ma calling, so I'd better hit the trail." Then, quicker than a snake can spit, Jack scooped up the banjo and the lasso and leaped onto the buffalo and galloped out the front door like his life depended on it. Which it did. Uh-oh. He's running away from the giant. I hope he gets away. The giant let out a roar that shook the castle and shattered glass. "Thief! Thief!" he cried. Jack felt the clouds shake and quake as the giant pounded closer and closer. By the time he reached the beanstalk, Jack could smell Wild Bill's breath behind him. P.U. Oh, the giant had bad breath. But I don't think that's the biggest one of Jack's problems. Jack wrapped his legs around the buffalo and tightened his grip on his hat, and they jumped right off the cloud. Jack's Stetson billowed out like a parachute. They floated to the desert floor, landing with a gentle thump. Wild Bill was climbing down the beanstalk when Jack grabbed a rope and lassoed a stout leaf. He tied the other end of the rope to the buffalo and gave him a gentle slap on the rump, yelling, "Giddy up!" The buffalo pulled the beanstalk until it was bent like a huge upside-down U. Then Jack tipped his hat to the giant and cut the rope. Looky there. Well, that was smart of Jack. What do you think is going to happen when he cuts the rope? Whang! Shush! Yow! Cried the giant. He flew through the air and skidded across the desert, leaving a trail of chaps, jeans, boots, and the granddaddy of all canyons. Looky there. My goodness. Jack showed his ma the wonderful treasures. She was so happy she cried. Pretty soon the bar none was the biggest, fanciest spread west of the Mississippi. Jack bought back Fred, and they all lived as happily as a herd of javelinas in a patch of prickly pear. Though sometimes Jack got a little carried away with his golden lasso. So it looks like maybe he was lassoing things that shouldn't be turned into gold. Wasn't that a fun story? I hope you'll join me again sometime. If your grown-ups want more information about this book, they'll find it in the show notes. Bye-bye.